I'm 22, and my life just flipped upside down in the strangest way. 2 weeks ago, I moved back in with my mom after finishing college. I figured it would be temporary, just until I found a job and saved up enough to get my own place. But from the moment I walked through the door, something felt different. Not just, I've been gone for 4 years. Different. More like the house itself had changed, like it didn't belong to me anymore. My room was exactly as I left it, but the air felt heavier, colder. I brushed it off as stress, unpacked my bags, and tried to settle back into old routines. The first night, though, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to footsteps creaking down the hall. They stopped outside my room, right at the door. I thought it was Mom, but when I called out, nobody answered. The sound lingered, then slowly moved away. I barely slept after that. The next morning, I asked Mom if she'd been up during the night, but she just gave me this weird look and said she slept straight through. Then she quickly changed the subject. That was when I noticed she avoided certain parts of the house, especially the basement. She hasn't set foot down there since I've been back, not even to do laundry. I keep telling myself it's nothing, that I'm just imagining things, but deep down, I know there's something off, and I think whatever it is, Mom knows about it. She just won't say. The second night was worse. I was half asleep when I heard the basement door creak open. It's right down the hall from my bedroom, so the sound was unmistakable. I froze in bed, straining to listen. For a moment, there was silence. Then the faint sound of something dragging, slow, heavy, uneven. I wanted to convince myself it was just Mom moving boxes or something, but the longer it went on, the more unnatural it sounded. I finally worked up the nerve to peek out my door, and that's when I saw it. The basement light was on. A pale yellow glow spilled into the hallway. I almost called for Mom, but some instinct told me not to. Instead, I shut my door and sat awake until dawn, heart racing the whole time. At breakfast, Mom acted like everything was normal, sipping her coffee and asking me about job applications, but I couldn't stop staring at her hands. They were trembling. Not a lot, just barely, but enough to notice. When I asked her if she'd gone into the basement last night, her whole face went stiff. She said no, and then she smiled in this forced way that made my stomach twist. That's when I realized she was lying to me. I don't know what's down there, but something's not right, and I think my mom's hiding it on purpose. By the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I told myself I was going to stay awake and figure out what was happening. I set an alarm for midnight, sat on my bed with the lights off, and waited. At 1:17 a.m., right on cue, the basement door creaked. My whole body tensed. This time, I crept to the hallway as quietly as I could. The door was cracked open, light pouring out again. I held my breath and listened. There it was. The dragging sound. Only now I could hear something else, too. A voice. Low, raspy, almost like a whisper carried on static. I couldn't make out the words, but it chilled me straight to the bone. I leaned closer to the doorframe, and that's when I caught sight of Mom. She was standing at the top of the basement stairs, staring down, whispering back. Her voice was steady, but her shoulders were shaking like she was terrified. She didn't even notice me watching. I backed into my room, shut the door, and sat there in the dark, shaking. When I woke up the next morning, Mom was acting like nothing had happened. She even made pancakes, which she hasn't done since I was a kid. But her eyes looked red and swollen, like she'd been crying all night. I want to confront her, but every time I get close, my throat closes up. Because deep down, I'm scared of what she'll say. I couldn't take the pretending anymore. That morning, while Mom was out running errands, I decided to finally check the basement myself. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that I'd go down there, see nothing unusual, and finally be able to laugh at myself. But the second I opened the basement door, the air hit me, thick, damp, and cold, like the kind of air that doesn't belong in a normal house. The stairs creaked under my feet louder than they ever had before, each step making me hesitate. When I reached the bottom, I expected to see boxes, tools, maybe some old holiday decorations. Instead, the whole room was stripped bare, just concrete walls, an empty floor, and a single chair in the center facing the far wall. And that wall? It was wrong. The concrete was stained, almost like something had seeped through over time. Dark streaks ran down into a puddle-shaped mark on the floor. When I crouched to look closer, I realized the stains weren't just random. They formed shapes, symbols, circles and lines scratched into the surface, some newer than others. That's when I heard the floor creak upstairs. My heart stopped. Mom was back. I scrambled up the stairs, shut the door, and tried to look casual, sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in. She didn't say a word at first, just set the groceries down and stared at me. I'll never forget that look. It was sharp, knowing, like she could tell exactly where I'd been. Then, without breaking eye contact, she said, "Don't ever go down there again." That night, I couldn't sleep. Mom's warning kept repeating in my, "Don't ever go down there again." It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said them, like she wasn't just scared for me. She was scared of me knowing. Around 3 a.m., I heard it again. The basement door creaking open. This time, I didn't even hesitate. I eased my own door open just enough to peek into the hallway. Mom was standing in front of the basement, holding a candle. Not a flashlight, not her phone. A candle. The flame flickered against her face, and she looked pale, almost hollow. She whispered something I couldn't make out, then descended the stairs. I waited until she was halfway down before creeping closer. From the crack of the door, I could see her kneeling in front of the wall with the markings. The candlelight made the symbols glow, and she was tracing them with her fingers like she was following instructions. Then she spoke again, but this time I heard it. She said, "Please, not my child. Take me instead." I nearly gasped, but I clamped my hand over my mouth before any sound escaped. My whole body was shaking. She stayed down there for what felt like forever, whispering to that wall, rocking back and forth, crying. When she finally came back up, I barely made it into my room in time. She paused in the hallway, her shadow flickering against my door. For a moment, I thought she knew I'd been watching, but then she just whispered, "Not much longer." I lay awake until sunrise, realizing two things. Whatever's in that basement, it's not just in, and whatever it wants, it has something to do with. By the next day, I knew I couldn't keep pretending I hadn't seen any. Confronting Mom outright impossible. Every time I whispering, she was bargaining with something. So instead, I decided to dig deeper. I started with the house itself. It's been in our family for generations, passed down from parents. I never thought much, but now it's important. I went looking through old boxes in the attic, hoping for something. Old photos, papers. After an hour of digging, I found a dusty metal tin wedged behind a stack of yearbooks. Inside were letters bundled with twine, all addressed to my grandfather. Most were ordinary. Neighbors, bills, family updates. But one stood out. The envelope was yellowed, brittle, and on the front someone had scrawled in jagged handwriting, "For the next one." I didn't know what that meant, but my stomach dropped when I opened it. The letter was short, only a few lines written in shaky ink. "The wall is not to be touched. It listens. It learns. The bargain must be kept, or it will take what it chooses. If you are reading this, then you already know it wants the young." I sat frozen, the words burning in my head. The bargain must be kept. Bargain with what? With who? And what did it mean about the young? That night, I slipped the letter under my pillow, too afraid to leave it anywhere else. But as I tried to sleep, the house felt different, like the air itself was watching me. Every creak of the wood sounded deliberate, every shadow stretched too long. And then, at exactly 2:33 a.m., I heard it again. Not just the dragging, not just Mom's whispering, but a voice, deep, wet, wrong, calling my name from the basement. I told myself not to answer. Every instinct in me screamed to stay silent, but hearing that voice, it was like it hooked straight into my chest and pulled. It didn't sound human. It was too low, too drawn out, each syllable slurred, almost gurgling, but unmistakable. It said my name. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The sound wasn't just in the air. It was inside my head. My body moved before I could stop it. I found myself standing at my bedroom door, fingers wrapped around the knob, heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. And then I heard another voice. Mom's. She was in the hallway, whispering furiously. "Not yet. You can't. Not yet." Her tone was pleading, desperate. I stayed frozen, listening as silence stretched out between them, and then that thing answered her. A sound like rocks grinding together, layered with a laugh that made my stomach twist. I don't remember closing my eyes, but when I opened them, Mom was standing right in front of my door. Her face pale, eyes wide, hair messy like she'd been pulling at it. She didn't knock. She didn't speak. She just stood there, staring, until finally she whispered, "Go back to bed, please." I did as she said, but I didn't sleep, not even for a second, because I realized something I hadn't before. She wasn't trying to protect me from it. She was trying to protect it from me. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. The letter burned in my mind like it was written in fire. The bargain must be kept. It wants the young. I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. At breakfast, Mom moved around the kitchen like a ghost, pouring coffee, avoiding my eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled the folded letter from my pocket and dropped it on the table between us. Her hand froze mid-air. The moment her eyes landed on the paper, the color drained from her face. She didn't even try to play dumb. She just stared at me, trembling. Finally, she whispered, "You weren't supposed to find that." I demanded answers. My voice shook, but I couldn't hold back. What was the bargain? What was in the wall? Why was it calling me? Her eyes filled with tears, but her words came out sharp. "It's not supposed to want you yet. It shouldn't be calling for you. I've kept my side. I've given it everything it asked for. Every year. Every year." The words hit me like a knife. I pushed harder, asking what she meant, what she'd been giving it. Her hands shot up, covering her face, and she sobbed. Then, through her shaking, she whispered something I'll never forget. Animals, at first. Strays. Then, it wanted more. I felt sick. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I might throw up. She wouldn't look at me, but her meaning was clear. It hadn't just been animals. And now, it wanted me. I couldn't breathe. My own mother, the woman who raised me, who tucked me in at night, had been feeding something in our basement. Animals at first, then more. I wanted to scream at her, demand every detail, but the words stuck in my throat. She just sat there, shaking, whispering, "I did it for you." The rest of the day passed in a haze. Mom avoided me, and I avoided her. By nightfall, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to wait for another whisper, another dragging sound. I had to see for myself what was behind that wall. When the house went quiet, I grabbed the candle she always used and crept to the basement. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped it, but I forced myself down the stairs. The air grew colder with each step, so heavy it felt like I was moving underwater. The chair was still there, facing the wall. The symbols seemed darker now, pulsing faintly in the candlelight. I pressed closer, heart hammering, until I noticed it wasn't just markings, it was cracks. Deep, jagged cracks, like something had been pressing from the other side, trying to force its way out. And then, from the center, an eye opened. Not human, not animal. Too big, too black, and filled with something I can't even put into words. It blinked slowly, and when it opened again, the voice filled the room. It didn't whisper this time. It spoke clear as day, rattling the walls. "The bargain is broken. Now you are mine." The candle went out. The darkness swallowed me whole. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The voice pressed into my skull like it was inside me now. Mine. The air grew thick, vibrating with every word, and the cracks in the wall began to split wider, dust raining down as if the house itself was breaking apart. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, when suddenly, light. Mom had followed me down, clutching her own candle, her face streaked with tears. She didn't even look at me. Her eyes were locked on the wall, and for the first time, I saw the kind of fear that goes past survival. Fear of something she had lived with for too long. She screamed, louder than I'd ever heard her. "Take me! Not my child! I'm the one you want!" The eye rolled toward her, and the voice answered, deep and rumbling. "Your years are spent. The bargain is void." She dropped to her knees, begging, clawing at the concrete floor until her hands bled. I tried to pull her back, but she shoved me behind her, keeping her body between me and the wall. "Run," she whispered. "Please, just run." But I didn't. I couldn't. The cracks spread wider, and a hand, if you could call it that, pushed through. Long, jagged fingers, dripping black like tar. The sight of it paralyzed me. And then, without hesitation, Mom stood up and threw herself forward, straight into its grasp. The thing snatched her in one swift motion, dragging her through the wall. Her scream echoed once, then cut off. The cracks sealed. The basement fell silent. I stood there, shaking, candlelight flickering weakly against bare concrete. The chair lay toppled. The symbols faded, as if they'd never been there. I wanted to believe she'd saved me, but when I turned to leave, I heard it again. Not from the wall this time, from inside me. Not much longer, and now, I don't know if I escaped at all.